Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dynasty Gambit, part of the Going for Two Live network, which you can find on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook and Twitch. Twitter comments don't work, but anywhere else, so you can come in, interact with us, talk, and we'll, misleading a little bit. Co-host Brian here today, and Brian, it's not so much the Dynasty Gambit today. We're going to be the Devy Gambit today, aren't we?
We are. I'm excited. That's my newfound love. Last year was my first year to do it. I've been doing all kinds of other different formats, but I would encourage anybody that's playing and or contributing, you got to try new formats to keep yourself fresh.
And it's funny because last year was when the Devy Royale podcast started. So it's funny that you kind of started at the same time as a pretty significant Devy content creation group began their journey together. And of course, three individuals who'd been playing Devy a lot longer than just from last year, and bringing his expertise from the Devy Royale here today back on Going for Two, back on the Dynasty Gambit after coming a couple weeks ago is Jeff Bell. How you doing, Jeff?
Fantastic, Kyle. Hey, Brian. Thank you guys for having me on. Of course, my heart is always with Going for Two. That's where I really started. And so I'm just honored and thrilled to be able to, anytime that I can come back on Going for Two, I'm always down to do that. So thank you so much for reaching out in there. And of course, you can find me with Football Guys and of course the Devy Royale. So I've got all that going on and I'm always down to talk Devy. So I was in very heavy draft mode up until the NFL draft and kind of getting through those rookie drafts. And now I've really shifted the gears back to college football. That's my first love. It's my true passion. And so I'm thrilled to be here to be able to talk about it.
Awesome. Well, we're definitely glad to have you. Kyle told me that you were going to jump on. I was really excited because we've had some interaction, but you're all over Twitter. So it feels like I'm rubbing elbows with the hero for sure.
I don't know about all that. I'm just one guy out here just trying to have some fun, but I appreciate the kind words. But you guys too. Like, I see you guys around Twitter, and like I've definitely been on with Kyle before, and Brian, I've seen you on shows. And so I'm just very thrilled and honored to be able to be on with you guys.
Yeah, and again, as mentioned, Jeff, you did join us a few weeks ago for the rookie mock draft, so really appreciated that. Like you're saying, draft season, right? Whether it was before or after the NFL draft, mock drafts, rookie drafts, that's kind of come and gone. I know I've still got some rookie drafts upcoming, one of which is a Devy draft, so I guess it is kind of that season where a few of those will start to sneak in. But Brian, I mean, this was your idea. You're the one that kind of brought up the idea of talking about Devy, and I thought, let's make a whole episode about it. And my first thought was, let's bring Jeff on, of course. So I think, I guess right off the bat, do you have any questions for Jeff that you want to start with?
Yeah, like I said, last year was my first year. We just finished both the redraft and Devy segments of that one league that I'm in. And somebody asked a question during the middle of the draft if they could actually, if there are leagues that can actually draft high school players, the players that are still in high school.
There is every format of fantasy football that you can imagine. So I'm sure you can get into a league that you can draft high schoolers. I would probably advise against it. There's a lot of unknown when it comes to high schoolers, and there's a lot that needs to be worked out there. And really, I think Devy's a lot of fun because you're kind of placing your bets on who's going to work out, but at the same time, you're going to miss a lot in Devy. And that's the reality of the situation. You're going to have a lot of guys, especially if you're playing straight Devy, where you're just waiting for them to get to your NFL roster. You're going to be wrong quite often. And I understand, especially with Arch Manning, the excitement of being able to get him on your team and chomping at the bit there. But I would recommend probably avoiding that just because I don't know. It takes, if you miss like a whole class, that takes a lot of fun out of doing it. So just try to, you can do anything you want to do though.
Yeah, that's the other question. So in regards to like the league that I'm in, we have, after the initial dispense round, we had this every year. We have three rookie rounds of draft, and then also the 3 Devy rounds. Like you said, in regards to hit and miss, last year I picked Jaden Daniels. I'm hearing his name was good, and then all of a sudden he's basically tanked, and I don't know if he's going to be the starter at LSU or not. But how do you try to protect against like failures? And do you prefer to go with the one class that's going to be in the primary draft next year and stay away from the younger guys, or how do you do that?
you kind of have to play the board a little bit. And I know last year, and we, it's kind of fresh in our minds because DJ Uiagalelei was a top guy last year. Spencer Rattler was a top guy last year. Even Kyron Williams in this class was a top guy, and he ended up going in the 5th round of the actual NFL draft. The way I play, I lean towards the bigger schools. The Ohio States, the Alabamas, I kind of trust those first. And if there's players that I feel very comfortable are going to be really in the NFL in a year, that's where I would go first. And then I would probably get a little bit more. It all depends on your risk appetite. So you could really hit the home run, going in the 3rd round, a guy like Nicholas Singleton, running back from Penn State, he's got a lot of buzz on him. So if you were to take him in the later round or even an earlier round, and he turns into be the next Bijan Robinson, the running back from Texas, that is going to be, everybody's going to be talking about him coming in this class. You've really hit a home run there, but it really it depends on your risk appetite, and everybody in Devy is going to be risky in some regards too. But I do. NIL makes it interesting though, because I kind of have talked about on the Devy Royale where some of these guys like Carson Strong last year at Nevada, a lot of people liked Carson Strong coming out of Nevada last year, but he stayed at Nevada and he didn't move. And so that's kind of something that, looking at the guys that are at smaller schools, if they're not getting NIL offers to move, or if there's those type of things are not on the table for them, it almost, maybe you have to ask the question in your mind on, am I wrong on this guy to view them as a Devy asset if other schools are not putting money on the table there? And I think that there are different clues and different things that you can use in that regard. And the biggest thing when you're going to play Devy, knowing consensus is important to know player values, but at the same time, like, do some level of your own scouting and kind of, because that's really what you're getting into. You're kind of going beyond the just kind of picking off a sheet or like what consensus says or that, and you're really get in there and develop a scouting approach, a scouting model, and then you kind of live with your own picks.
Yeah, I totally agree. Being new, that's a tough, I think one of the tougher things to gauge is, I played high school football and all that, but it doesn't make me a talented, an expert talent person in regards to film and stuff. But at the same time, if you can take the time and develop your own niche, that would certainly be best.
Yeah, and it's just fun in the game too. It's part of the fun of the game of like playing that. We all kind of, when we're playing fantasy football, we're all kind of playing at GM a little bit there, and we're kind of playing at scout a little bit too, like when you're watching the college guys, and so it adds that element to the, and we're really just trying to have fun.
Well, most importantly, I mean, everybody can always play in a pay league, but that's the one thing I did last year, the first league. I just did it for free and allowed me to watch more college games and that type of thing. There's no pressure if you're not putting a lot of money in it. So just play it for fun. And, like I said, more different types of aspects you can come up with in fantasy football, more formats, gives you an opportunity to maybe find a new one that you enjoy or maybe write for somebody or podcast like we are. So.
Absolutely.
And Noah Singleton, by the way, I did pick him up in the 3rd round. There's a good friend of mine, Britt Sanders. I think it's at Sandman25 on Twitter.
Yep.
I was, I'm being relatively new. I like to talk to others and see what they think. So that's another way I would get into the game, is talking to your friends, and maybe they've done it like Jeff's done it. And I haven't done it as long. There are always good people out there to talk to.
Absolutely.
Well, and I know from experience that Jeff's just a wide open book. You DM him, ask him anything, he'll answer. He'll give you his honest opinion in a pretty timely manner. So yeah, it's on the screen at For Whom J Bell Tolls for anyone listening on the audio, and you can plug it at the end of the episode. We'll get back to more of that later, but I guess really like back to the beginning, right? Like, we all, you were kind of saying it, Brian, and Jeff as well. Like, it's, less cookie cutter formats, and you start with redraft and you grow and part of wanting to be an entire front office, right? Like, naturally you end up being the GM, the coach when you're making lineup decisions. And then, like you said, Jeff, you end up being a scout as well for Devy, because the concept behind Devy is that you are drafting these players in college or high school, potentially, probably mostly college though, years before, a year or, singular or plural, before their draft eligibility years. So, even though, let's say, players like Drake London, Garrett Wilson haven't played NFL games yet, they would necessarily go into a Devy portion of a draft, in 2022, they'd enter into the NFL part because they will be playing in the NFL this season. So the players you're picking in Devy in a 2022 startup will spend the 2022 season in college. So, and I think just off the bat, you were talking about, like, Jeff, the different varieties of fantasy football in general, but it seems like how you can organize a Devy league as well is pretty vast. There isn't necessarily the same like even to a dynasty league, you can different scoring settings, different ways to maneuver things, waivers, whether it's fab or not. But it's still usually startup and rookie draft. But with Devy, you can even get further into the complexities there. And I think the one main division I could come off right off the bat is, are you doing your Devy and rookie drafts separate or together? Is it something that's going to happen every year anyway? And I mean, and I think so that's kind of like, in my eyes, the one main division, but I'm sure you can even get to subcategories of there. So how does one person even kind of navigate, like, how to kind of view all the formats of Devy?
Reach out on Twitter, find people that is a good way to start, and find something that you'll be comfortable doing. I would recommend having I mean, at some point, it's going to be Devy depleted rookie drafts and some levels. So to have that balance there, and really, like you said, you could go either direction, and you can have your Devy draft and treat those Devy assets separate, or you can have your rookie draft separate, or you can have just picks and either take supplemental players that are going into the NFL that aren't owned in Devy or aren't rostered in Devy, or you can do draft picks as well that Devy players, and kind of play that game and play that value on it. And it's really, and that's one of the beautiful things about like this type of fantasy football. And really, once you kind of get beyond playing on some of the bigger sites that kind of have a very set model, just the flexibility and the opportunity to play different styles and do it different ways, and really the bottom line is about getting a group of people together that you want to play fantasy football with, and that you can all kind of agree on the same settings that you're all comfortable operating in. And there are so many people along on Twitter and the community that love to teach new people how to play games. And I'll plug my co-host. Kevin Coleman is fantastic at it. Kevin Coleman is he's a teacher by nature, and he is so good with new players and getting people started and helping them along. And he's great with that. And just the resources that are available. And it really just kind of depends on how you want to play. Like I play in Ryan McDowell's Kitchen Sink League, and that's wild. Like you got contracts, you've got Devy assets, and I play in John Bosch's has another league that's contracts with Devy assets, and things are just kind of crazy in those where you've got salary caps and you've got your Devy players and you're all going in there, and that's some really next level stuff. Whereas you can kind of really scale it back if you just want to have like 2 rounds of a Devy draft, or like have 2 college players or 5 college players, whatever it might be.
Yeah, in regards to ours, the one league I did last year, we had the startup, I think, in February or March. We decided that since we weren't going to have any IDP players and or kickers, the defensive special teams, the teams themselves and or kickers, that we wouldn't do the Devy or the rookie in that, but we'd use either the kicker or the DST, and that would be like a placeholder. And then we wound up having the rookie draft first, I believe it was, and then the Devy draft second. And there were 4 rounds of rookie last year and 3 of Devy. And now this year, like you were talking about, the rookies took a lot out of the remaining Devy players. So we're a 12-team league, so we had 36 Devy picks and 48 rookie picks last year. I drafted, I picked Olave. I picked 2 or 3 players. Jaden Daniels was the only one that did not pan out. And I took Malik Willis was my other player. So having Olave and Malik Willis at first round rookie did not bother me any this year for sure. And now every year forward, it'll be 3 rounds of both rookie and Devy. So like you were saying, it really waters down next year's rookie class. So be interesting to see what that looks like.
But it's funny how it seems like no matter how good we are at analyzing and guessing a year in advance, there's always guys that fall through the crack and end up being pretty good dynasty rookie draft picks anyway, that end up making good picks in Devy leagues that seem to fall through. I know for myself, The one Devy league I'm in, it's Scott Connor that commissions it and organizes the rules, and that one's a combined league. So some restrictions. So it's 6 rounds of rookie / Devy picks. You can take up to 12 Devy players in the first 5 rounds, and then another 6 in the 6th round. So even just that, like just knowing that 6th round picks tend to be more valuable than 4th and 5th round picks, to be honest. Like you see those get traded for better assets. So that's kind of funny how that ends up working. And the timing is different. I know for this one, we're actually going to do our Devy rookie draft just coming up June 5th. So we're just a week and a half away from that. And I'm sitting at the 104. And while already kind of Devy deplete, this will be year 3 now, and still at 104, I'm guaranteed a pretty good rookie from this year's class in either Kenneth Walker, Drake London, Chris Olave, or Jamison Williams. So
nice.
Some pretty sharp people in this league, and yet all 4 of those guys fell through and kind of still make those draft picks worth it. I know for myself, I've kind of avoided taking Devy players. When I've had the rookie picks come up, I've either traded away for max value, getting veterans plus, or last year I took Mac Jones at the 110, and I thought I was trying to trade up to get him or Jamison, Javonte Williams, like as soon as the 102, 103, and no one wanted to trade up, and then just Mac Jones just fell to 109, 110, and I was okay. Well, that's good. Glad I didn't trade up then. And then this year it's that same thing where I'm just gonna, as much as there are some good Devy names available, I have to kind of go through and make sure. But assuming no one falls to the crack and I don't trade away the pick, I kind of feel like I'm gonna get my who's left between Jamison Williams, Chris Olave. I've already tried to kind of trade up. I wanted Walker, London, but I don't have enough ammunition, enough other picks to kind of make those trades happen. But just to say that, like, you still get those guys fall through the cracks. So we say, oh, Devy depleted. It scares you. Think of, oh, do I have to take Keontae Ingram 101? Not quite that. Not quite that. There still seems to always, like, guys like Joe Burrow would have probably likely been available even in year long or several season long Devy leagues where he kind of exploded out of nowhere. So you still get those surprises, which makes it all interesting.
Yeah, I mean, even doing those top 75 rankings, those names that you just mentioned weren't there in early September, maybe even early October. They weren't even on the board necessarily for me. And then it just kept rising. And another example, if he wasn't still in college, would be, what's his name, Sean Tucker out of Syracuse?
Yep.
The running back?
Yes.
So, a lot of those kind of late bloomers that you don't really necessarily expect will still be available in next year's rookie. So
someone came for the open bar. I didn't know that J Mike and Gabe were doing the open bar again. I've been on before. I think you have too, Jeff, right?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is going for 2 kickers or extra. We give them the boot, but sit back, relax, and grab yourself a brew. And it's basically the open bar that way. So that's actually a Gabe song. So thanks, Gabe, the intro for on the Armchair Show. We don't have a musical intro here, but so a question here though. Got Drake London at 103, Jamison Williams at 105. Decent ? I mean, I'd say in a Devy league, that's probably great, but even in a rookie draft, probably pretty good, right?
That's very good. Yes. Yeah. Pigbird Jet fan is a good dude. He's one of, we interact on Twitter quite frequently, and he's a really good guy. He's a fellow accountant like myself. So shout out to him. Thank you for watching, man. I appreciate that. So he's a really good guy.
Thank you, Pigbird Jet fan. Hopefully we make you a fan of the Dynasty Gambit. But yeah, I suppose I know I've talked about 105 kind of being, Garrett Wilson, Treylon Burks, I guess Kenneth Walker if he falls. But I suppose like having to know what the scoring settings are in team construction, I could understand going the receiver, going Williams over those other receivers if you prefer them, or going even Williams ahead of Kenneth Walker if the the scoring or roster settings kind of lean towards that.
Yeah, I've taken Williams over Traylon Burks in drafts that I've been into, so that's a move that I've made. But I'm much higher on Jamison Williams, I think, than most, and I got a lot of him because he was kind of dropping into that like 7 to 9 range, and I made sure to trade up quite often, like if I had lower picks to be able to get in there. And I think he actually might be my most rostered rookie, so I'm all in on the Jamison train. But he's fantastic, and a lot of I think he's kind of gotten misportrayed as just a deep threat, and Alabama used him quite frequently after the catch, and I think there are a lot of things that'll translate in his game.
Yeah, like we talked about a few weeks ago, out of those top 5 wide receivers, there's not a lot of difference between the 5 of them. Just choose your favorite. And then in regards to Walker versus wide receivers, to me, it really just depends on your current roster setup. I know I've got one league where Christian McCaffrey's basically my only running back, and so I might go Walker in that situation just because of where I'm at. So,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Team construction will kind of depend, right, from 102 all the way down. Like you can kind of take any number of players. I mean, just different dynasty chats I was in. I don't think I ever saw him go this high in any drafts I was in personally, but I've heard of Jamison Williams going 103 in rookie drafts. I've heard of some like James Cook going 103 or Pickett going 103 is maybe not that crazy compared to those, especially James Cook. Sorry, Jeff. I know you're a Bills fan. I know you like James Cook, but so Jamison Williams at 105 doesn't seem extreme at all. It seems like 105, 106, 107 seems to be the range he's going in. But yeah, I guess interesting topic you just kind of brought up there, Jeff. I know this Devy show. I guess got us beat. Jamie says he saw James Cook go 102. I know you like Cook a lot. I don't know if you'd quite do that, Jeff.
No, goodness no. No. Crazy out here. 202 maybe, but no, not 102.
Good. By the way, so you were saying Jamison Williams, your most rostered rookie right now. It's funny you say 202 because I think a player that I took 202 in one draft is Rashad White, and I've ended up through 6 rookie drafts with 4 shares of Rashad White, kind of all that mid-second round. And it was my whole point of not taking James Cook is because I didn't want to spend a first-round pick on him, but I wanted to take him in that early second round, but he's never going there, but Rashad White is, so it just falls well for me. But Brian, curious with you, do you have a most rostered rookie? I know we kind of speak about that 2 weeks ago, but has anything changed for you?
You know what? I'm in 6 leagues. Mine seem to bounce around all over the place. A lot of that, good or bad, is last year was not only my first year in Devy, but also in Dynasty. And I kind of wish I didn't win a league, which I'm kind of embarrassed to say, but I got in the semifinals of every one of them. So that's kind of the problem. You're always picking late unless you trade up. So I don't really have Pickens, I guess, was probably about as much as any share. And I've got enough of White as well. I actually prefer White over James Cook, but that's just me.
But you kind of mentioned it, though, in picking late. The biggest thing, especially in Dynasty, if you're dialed into Devy, if you're dialed into the content coming out of Devy, you can look at, I think in this draft class, there's a pretty clear after 7, maybe after 8, depending on how you feel about Sky Moore. In my mind, there's a pretty clear drop-off. And I kind of I had Malik Willis kind of there, obviously pre-draft. I think everybody did. And so that I thought there was kind of 9 pre-draft, but what I did all from January until I had my rookie drafts was if I had any picks in that range between 109, 112, I was trying hard to get ahead of it and move up so that I knew I was going to be in that tier or move out and get into that 23 class. And kind of before that, there was always been a little bit of buzz on that 23 class, but kind of having those names in my mind, knowing what to expect there, knowing the value of where to get in that 23 class. I didn't make very many picks in the end of the first round because I went one direction or the other. I either got up into that tier that I wanted to be in, or I got completely out in 23.
Yeah, you're trying to get up to, Jamison Williams, Chris Olave, Traylon Burks, kind of that 105 to 107, like we're talking about, Pig Bird Jet fan, which he did mention another comment that was a rookie draft. But yeah, And I guess, going like with it is our show. That's true. And we were supposed to talk Devy the whole time, but yeah, we can't help it. We love Dynasty. We can't help but
Well,
fall into
and
that
there's
a little bit.
elements in Devy that are involved in that, but that's the biggest thing is understanding how to value picks, understanding who's coming in the class, and being able to remove like even like this class, like having names and ideas on instead of like it always drives me nuts. Like when I would see, well, I have the 111 and like put some names on that, like kind of like don't really treat it as like, well, I have the like the 107. And like I feel like I see that so often in trade conversations, and it's like go that extra step and use Devy or use those resources. Go that extra step and say in your mind, well, I'm not trading the 107. I'm trading Jamison Williams, or I'm trading Chris Olave, or I'm trading Treylon Burks maybe, and kind of I think that's where you can really start to get some real value, or knowing those 23 picks and knowing that I think that there are 2 quarterbacks that would have been quarterback 1 in this class. I think there are probably 5 or so running backs that would have been running back 1, running back 2 in this class. Definitely 2 wide receivers who probably would have been the top guys off the board. And so right there, you're sitting at value through 4, 5, 8 picks or so. And so like knowing that if you're going to go for a 23 pick and kind of knowing the worst teams in your league probably aren't going to trade, but you can still kind of operate in that middle tier where a team might make the playoffs, might not, and acquire those. And certainly everybody's ahead of those. But, we can talk about the names real quick because I got CJ Stroud and Bryce Young as the quarterbacks. Then when you get to running backs, there's Bijan Robinson. We're all waiting on him. There is Zach Evans that he transferred from TCU to Ole Miss. There is Jahmyr Gibbs, who transferred into Alabama. You mentioned Sean Tucker at Syracuse. Wide receivers, Kayshon Boutte. You've got Jackson Smith and Jigba. Tank Robinson's a running back, or Tank Bigsby is a running back at Auburn. All these guys that are everybody's very excited about this class that's coming up.
So to kind of pony on that, in regards to trading, I know that's one thing that was so difficult for me, and I'm still figuring it out in regards to the value of a Devy pick versus a rookie pick versus an established player. It sounds like part of the importance is just identifying certain pieces and players that you would want to pick where you're at, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I would trade calculators are wonderful and try to use those kind of as a safe rail. But at the same time, it's really going to come down to your risk appetite on the assets that you want to move around, what you want to do, how the other person values players. You guys know all the ins and outs on trading, and it certainly adds an element to it. And I think it's fun because it I don't know, having somebody I've played redraft for a long, long time, and it was really hard. It's really hard to make trades in redraft, I think, because you really got to either fleece somebody or you got to get a situation where you're just risking it and going into somewhere because people don't really want to make those trades. But when you get into Devy, you get into Dynasty, that opens up so many more windows because you might have somebody that's in a contention window or somebody that wants to rebuild or somebody that is really looking at this 23 class and is willing to kind of do a mini reset. That's something that I've done with a couple of my teams, my Dynasty teams this year, where, I kind of fell short last year in the playoffs and I took a hard look and I said, value is going to start to go down on these guys. I can potentially move them off for grabbing 23 first-round picks and grabbing undervalued players and grabbing some of those areas that people don't want to go into and still kind of have a little bit of a competitive team this year, but at the same time have that eye more towards the future.
Makes a lot of sense. That one player that I've had some difficulty gauging at this point in time in terms of established players is Christian McCaffrey. I don't know what his market's sitting at. To me, if you look at like rankings across the board, he's still considered one of the top few dynasty running backs. But then if you go to trade somebody, risk averse seems to be very most of the board that I'm talking to. So.
Yeah, I really think you're going to run into that with any older running back, but I really think the windows that And I'd love to hear your guys' input too. But I really think the windows that you want to move these guys in is either kind of in August when you're really in redraft season and people are really used to seeing Christian McCaffrey as the 101 or 102 in their draft. I think that there's something clicks in their mind when they're doing a bunch of maybe underdog best balls or whatever else, and they're seeing Christian McCaffrey going number 2 off the board. And then I feel like in Dynasty, their risk appetite kind of goes a little bit more towards them saying, well, I kind of have this hole at my running back position and I didn't want to, but like I'll do that. Or I was fortunate. I had Travis Kelce in a bunch of leagues and they didn't have trade deadlines. And like I lost in the semifinals in a couple of leagues and I traded Travis Kelce during finals week because that team didn't have a tight end. And I'm out here dangling Travis Kelce in the middle of him still being an elite player. And then it was like, once that week was over, once we got into the regular season in Dynasty, all of a sudden everybody's very concerned about Travis Kelce's age and you can't move him. Like you're stuck with him. And I think that those are the 2 times that I'd really be looking at these older players. I think if you're moving an older player right around now, it's probably the wrong time to do it just because you're not stepping into that value there. But I do think that that once people get into that redraft mindset in the late summer, and then when people are really pushing towards, and even if there is a trading deadline in your league, I go to those teams that just lost in the finals and I target them like 2 days after they lost in the finals and say, well, your running back 2 fell apart here. Here's Dalvin Cook. Like you could be good to go next year. And I think that there's windows, and that's really all Dynasty is operating in windows of value, knowing those peak windows, moving those guys when you can in those windows.
You mentioned the word clues earlier. I can't remember exactly what, but it is a giant puzzle. Like Dynasty really is a big puzzle. So look for the clues and find your piece.
Yeah, and every league is its own economy, and so like you I don't know, like I played my home league, and it's all my friends that we've played together forever, and it's like I feel like 1 week first round picks, it's like you couldn't even get a first round pick trading Cooper Kupp, but then like the next week it's like, oh, here's a first round pick, like here, oh, Jalen Reagor, sure, here's a first round pick. It's just wild, like how individual players will operate, but leagues as well. And I think that like if you play in a lot of analyst leagues, the one thing that I've seen is people feel like a little bit more risk averse if you're playing along with other analysts from what I've experienced. But you get into, I love doing safe leagues. I do these safe leagues from Scott Fish, and I'm in like 8 of those. And I don't even know who I'm playing with, but people are in those environments are much more willing to do interesting deals.
Interesting. And kind of echoing a bit the statement of maybe not the best time to sell a veteran player. Pigbird Jet fan just kind of sums it up really well in this comment. This is what he says. We've barely seen CMC play. I wonder if he can't be moved for a lot more right after week 1, assuming he looks healthy and has a good game. Just to quickly comment on that, I did just trade away Austin Eckler in a league, and maybe kind of thinking, I wonder if I could have got more in season, but I traded him away for Marquise Brown and 2 4th-round picks. One was this year I used on Ty Chandler, and the one pushed back to next year. And the idea behind it was, shifting the roster construction away from running backs towards wide receivers. But yeah, maybe that was one where I could have waited and gotten a better deal than that.
Yeah. I don't know. That's the way I view it. But obviously everything could be different, and somebody might be a big Eckler fan, but it's I tend to do the same things too. And especially when it comes to, I think we all need to take a lesson from Michael Carter this past year, when you kind of have those guys that, maybe like Damian Pierce, and maybe Damian Pierce becomes the Texans starting running back. But just like I said, you've got a bunch of guys coming in this 23 class that if use those value windows. And I like to do the same thing, Kyle, that you talked about. Like I like to kind of move more into wide receivers because I think that there's a little bit more. We talk about longevity, but it's really kind of stability too. And you got an important piece of the passing game. You feel pretty good that he's going to be an important piece of the passing game. Whereas we can see running backs shift quick, and guys that even we thought were going to be pieces moving forward, they kind of take back seats. And I think the running back position is, while there's a low barrier of entry of players able to play, we obviously cycle through quickly. And so that's something to keep an eye on.
But just to your point there, knowing that we do cycle through them quickly and we want to get immediate production from running backs, Jamie's comment of preferring Damian Pierce over James Cook, wondering if, all due respect to Marlon Mack and Rex Burkhead, I don't think they've quite shown what Singletary's shown specifically last year. So maybe, that presents a bigger hurdle for Cook to overcome, especially to get that touchdown upside that we want right away, as opposed to Damian Pierce, who, and my problem with Damian Pierce is the hurdle isn't the running backs. The hurdle is the awful offensive line. So I think that saps his touchdown upside. So I'm not as high on Pierce, but I think if you want the immediate kind of opportunity, I get why, like, Pierce, like, I've seen Pierce go in the first round of some rookie drafts as the RB3. I don't think I've ever seen him go ahead of Kenneth Walker. So maybe not the hype of like a James Cook going 103 necessarily, but like Jeff, Brian, I don't know if you guys have seen Pierce go in the first round of any of your rookie drafts.
I've not seen him quite go that early. Of course, it's all based on opportunity now, but I would think in a dynasty league, we're looking more long term. And who knows what they'll draft next year. The Texans are really a fluid team, I'm sure.
I think I've seen him like 110 in one or two leagues, but a lot of times early second, mid second. Sorry, Jeff.
Yeah, that's my concern, that he's a 4th round pick, and yeah, maybe he'll pull ahead and maybe he'll give you some immediate production, but unless he really pops, unless he really stands out, I don't see day 3 guys as, I look at it as a day 3 pick. A team is thrilled if they get production out of a guy, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a centerpiece of their offense moving forward. And, if Davis Mills looks like he's going to be the starter for the Texans and Damian Pierce is productive, but like just kind of okay, and then the Texans hit the clock and maybe like a late 1st round pick or early 2nd round pick, and Bijan Robinson sitting there just from down the road from Austin, Texas. I think that's probably going to be a pretty tempting pick to put into that offense to play with the young quarterback.
And Robinson's fully capable of being a 3-down back. So basically all Pierce could be after that would be himself a 3rd-down back in the NFL, and that's all. So,
well, I think the one thing with Pierce specifically, like, he's like, he wouldn't, I think you'd say if you're just looking strictly pass catching, Cook's the better pass catcher, has more of the pedigree than Pierce. But I think maybe, Jamie's argument, Pierce the better runner, right? And again, maybe that's what we want, is the guy who can be between the tackles, specifically the short yardage guy and the goal line guy. That's where you're going to really get that touchdown upside, where, if you play in the right weeks and you hit the right weeks, like a James Conner last year, you'll be rewarded for sure on that. So I think the biggest hurdle there isn't so much any running back on the depth chart. It's just the O-line. So we'll see if they've addressed it. Have they addressed it enough? We'll find out. But Jamie does have a question, and back to Arch Manning is kind of the centerpiece of the episode in terms of players we're talking about. What year draft pick will we be drafting Arch Manning 101? And I think we can do this both ways. Like, what is his like Dynasty 101? Like, what year do we expect him to declare for the NFL draft? But I wonder, Jeff, can we expand this to Devy? When, like you're saying, you don't take him now, but when would you be comfortable? Like, what year would you target to try and take him in a draft? It's assuming he makes it that far. Like, ideal world for you and not having to worry about the risk of someone taking him a year before. What would you want to kind of target him to where you're likely taking a 1st round pick on him in a Devy draft?
Taking a 1st round pick on him in a Devy draft.
Well, I guess let's
because
work backwards from when do we think he's going to declare? That might be where the real answer lies.
I think it's the 2026 class is when he's going to be available. I'm pretty sure it's the 2026 class. I feel like I should know that for sure.
I feel like I've heard that as well. I think it is 2026.
Yeah. So it's just quarterbacks are very risky assets in Devy. That's the bottom. Like, they're even like guys, like I mentioned it earlier, where DJ Uiagalelei or Spencer Rattler, we felt very good about them at this point last year, and now they might not even be the quarterbacks of their team. Obviously, we saw Spencer Rattler lose his job at Oklahoma, have to go to South Carolina, and DJU, he might be losing his job to Cade Klubnik coming in as a freshman. So, but Arch Manning's a weird one because he's got the name value, obviously, and like we feel probably about as comfortable as anybody at his age that we're going to see him make it to the NFL. But things happen, and so I think ultimately you're probably going to have I don't. He stands as a guy that his value is going to be out of whack, really because of the name value. Because I've seen people that don't even have him as the number one quarterback in that class, and there's certainly a lot of earned hype around him. But there are other guys that are going to be there. But again, it just goes back to quarterbacks being a risky bet, because it's just a very difficult position to project, and especially to project a year out in college. Whereas usually wide receivers, running backs are a little bit safer. Running backs are kind of viewed as the safest Devy assets, because it's pretty easy to see if a guy's good and he's got a pass production and he's going to roll through. But wide receiver, it's a little bit more of a nuanced position. Obviously, quarterback is a highly nuanced position.
And I guess, well, okay, so it's funny because I've been listening to the Devy Royale quite a lot, and I've loved the theory of where do you think college football is going, how do you think it's going to affect like players, and talking about the name, image, and likeness, and what the NIL possibilities are for players maybe staying extra time. So yes, Arch Manning might be eligible to come out in 2026, but if he's landing massive NIL deals based solely on his name and not so much on his play, and he needs to get the play up there to be NFL drafted, because they're not going to care about the name. Like the NFL teams, they're like, yeah, actually they will. Some NFL team will still take him anyway. Let's be honest. There's some poorly run franchises, but like he's not going to be, if he doesn't deserve to be the first overall quarterback, he's not going to be. Like some team will sneak him into the back end of the first round, like a Paxton Lynch, Christian Hackenberg, and that's crazy to compare Arch Manning to those guys, maybe, but like that might be something where instead of running that route, he could just stay the extra year and rake in the money. So maybe he doesn't come out till 2027, right? So maybe that's also the risk. So, and to like, I guess like 101. So yeah, if you 101 in Dynasty, whatever year he comes out. So that's easy there. We'll know that information by the time you're doing your Dynasty drafts, which year he's coming out. But I think for Devy, the tricky part is, you maybe almost want to time it. Okay, do you take him in the Devy draft the year before he comes out? But, so it would be 2025. What if he stays the extra year? I guess it all depends too, is again, back to my initial division. Are your rookie and Devy picks combined or not? If they aren't, and you have to take Devy picks anyway, like you cannot take rookies with these draft slots, you have to take Devy players. I'd feel those are the leagues where you'd want to reach on an Arch Manning a year too early, because with these Devy picks, they're risk anyway. Like the risk, you're risking them just getting to the NFL, and let alone producing in the NFL. Whereas the rookies who are being drafted, like if you have a combined Devy rookie draft, I wouldn't want to take Arch Manning until he is eligible. But I'll be honest, I think he's already been taken in that draft in that league. Like I think last year in the rookie Devy draft, someone spent a second or third round pick on him. So that can't take him now, but like that's the one where I wouldn't want to take him. Like again, my personal philosophy is I want to mostly focus those picks on rookies, because I know like where they've been drafted, what kind of draft capital they're getting from the NFL, and that they've got to the NFL. So I think the type of Devy league you have as well is also determined on, are you going to make the risky reaches early on young prospects that we think have amazing profiles.
Well, and there's risk on if you draft your rookie draft before the NFL draft. And, we have a good idea on who's going to get drafted, but, Malik Willis shows us that there's massive risk on that, because he was in Superflex leagues. He was at one point the 101. He kind of settled in as the 102 in your Superflex leagues. And then he didn't go into the third round. And now you can get him in the mid-second round. So, I mean, and that's even like up until a week before the NFL draft, he was getting drafted in that area. And then as soon as the NFL draft, like the bottom just falls out completely. So I do think the 23 class is going to have so much buzz. And if you're in a Devy draft that hasn't, if you're starting a Devy draft, those are probably going to be the guys you see go first. And then you kind of step into Travion Henderson at Ohio State. He's going to be in the 24 class. Braylon Allen, Wisconsin running back in the 24 class. Those guys are going to go early too. But realistically, once Arch Manning hits your player pool, Arch Manning's can go probably pretty early, and just, largely off the value, off the name, and everything involved in him. And I mean, this is a kid that he can be 18 years old and be in insurance commercials with his uncle because of NIL. It's a whole new world.
You'd prefer to see him play 1 year in college. The likelihood is you may not get that opportunity.
No.
And like we talked about, a lot of it depends where he's drafted, whether it's a startup or second year or third year in the Devy League to begin with, because that changes your board completely. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, the truth is, like, so likely in your league, someone's gonna like him more than you, and he'll just be gone, and he won't even get the chance. So maybe don't even worry about Arch Manning then. Let someone else worry about that.
Well, and depending on how your league is set up, usually the person with the first pick might not be the best player in your league, but they might be the person that might be more inclined to just grab Arch Manning.
So 101 in 2022 and Devy startups, baby.
Exactly. I think that guy that asked the question during our draft was ready to pick him for sure. So.
Oh, but yeah, you mentioned that
sure.
The question of, can we draft high school players? Yeah, and like
I
mentioned it in the league Scott Connor set up, you totally can. So be at your own risk. Just a question here from Pigbird Jet Fan again. The message I'm hearing is that if it's not happening in 2022, trading for 23 picks would be a great idea. Is this the right message, or am I just a little broken inside? So thanks for that question. I mean, I think you constantly want roster flexibility anyway. Like, in terms of if it's not happening, I guess, like, define what that means. If it's not happening, I wouldn't want to necessarily just like now decide, okay, I'm not compete. I have no chance to compete this year based right now in May. If you get to mid-October and you've won 2 games, you've won 3 games, and your total points or your potential points is really low, and you can see that this is clearly a team that is heading towards the bottom, then you want to liquidate as much as you can towards 2023. But frankly, that might be a good idea to do now, simply not so much because you're not competing, but because the picks in season might also help you compete. Acquiring picks as trade assets so you can trade for players in season when you know that they're scoring points, someone's on a hot streak, someone's not hurt, or someone becomes injured, and then a replacement shows up that is viable. I think of anyone who spent a second or third round pick last year on Rashad Penny. What were those late seconds, thirds this year? It might have been the Desmond Ridder, Malik Willis, Matt Corral quarterback, if they lasted that long. Even, I mean, you might have got like a Alec Pierce, for instance. I know that was something I saw quite a lot in the second round that I would have been maybe excited about. But was Alec Pierce, the chance to take Alec Pierce really worth getting, like that running back like Rashad Penny right in the middle of the stretch where he was the RB1 for a big enough chunk of the fantasy playoffs? So also knowing that picks, acquiring picks isn't just a thing rebuilding teams have to do.
So really what I like to do, it's a calendar cycle in your dynasty leagues. And really what I'm like to do right now is I'm looking at players that I'm just kind of ready to move off of, or I've got some questions about them, or players that might be catching a little bit of Twitter buzz that I'm not entirely sold on. And what I'm trying to do right now is kind of clean up my roster. And I like to have a good bit of flexibility towards the end of my roster that I can pick up players during the season and not feel like I need to drop a guy there. And so I'm trying to clean up my rosters and trying to get those second and third round picks ideally right now, because those are the picks that allow you to, it's one thing to throw an offer of a random guy for a first round pick. It's something else to have a second round pick. And then, like, if somebody's desperate at a running back position and you've got like Chase Edmonds is playing really well during the season, and everybody's kind of talking about there where you can trade that second round pick and Chase Edmonds that is producing for a first round pick, and making those and constantly in my mind, like, I'm just treating all my dynasty teams as I'm just trying to turn and just continually roll up and continue to roll up as many top end assets as I possibly can. And then it's like almost when I do it on one, then I start the cycle all over again and work on those third round picks that I can roll into seconds, that I can roll into first, or those first that I can roll into players. And that's the way that I'm always playing Dynasty, is really just trying to consolidate and churn up rosters, constantly create opportunity where I can roster players that might see value, move those into picks, move those into other players, and just continue to roll that way.
Jeff, one question I have for you. With the demand for 2023, I mean, it's obviously everybody knows go pick up 2023 draft picks.
Yeah.
but the question I have, I mean, obviously there's only X amount of number of picks. Are people going to most of the time having to pay up to get those picks, and should they do so?
I think the reality of it is if you're in a league that's plugged in, or if you got a couple plugged in people in your league, they've probably already made the moves to get those 23 picks. They've like the leagues that I've been in, the way I've been operating, and the leagues that I've seen other people operating in, is they're shaking the tree. They've been shaking the tree for months on trying to get those 23 picks. And so really the ones that can move probably have already moved and are probably sitting on, and always try, but the reality of it is, and especially if you see somebody in your league that's been able to acquire some 23 first, then you can probably bet that they've shaken the branches of the entire league and to see what's available. And you can kind of use those clues and figure out, if somebody's sent you offers for your 23 first, or they've been able to do it with somebody else, that they've gone through the whole list and done that. So while I do think that this is probably one of your last opportunities to get them at somewhat decent value, but everybody's all hyped up on them. But you might be in a league that's not super plugged in. And if you're hearing this, try to do that. But at the same time, and it's just going to continue to grow because, if CJ Stroud and Bryce Young are out there lighting the world on fire, but John Robinson's doing what we expect him to do. If Jackson Smith and Jigba, Keyshawn Boutte are out there, once we're really seeing them on the field, and then I think we're gonna have something on our hands there.
Yeah.
Just to kind of continue your example, Jeff, there's a league where I've got 5 23 firsts, so my own, and I've acquired 4 extra ones. I've had that, like, I've only had those 4 extra ones, and I've had them all since September 2021. So like all through last year through now, I still haven't been able to acquire them since like the first 2 weeks of last season. So it's, those that I was able to get from, I already got from everyone else. It also could be like I just ran out of assets to move that are worth first. So other managers in the league could buy first. I probably can't. Like I probably maxed out in terms of who I have. Probably still have Trevor Lawrence could move for a first if I really wanted to. But mostly, like I've kind of maxed out how much I'm gonna get. But still, like 5-1 league's pretty good. I'd imagine in a 12-team league. So,
but I think there's opportunity on the 24 picks though, because I think you can make an argument that Travion Henderson might be the best running back in college football, and Braylon Allen might not be far behind him in the 24 class. We have Quinn Ewers is going to be the Texas quarterback. He's going to be in that class. Jackson Dart looked pretty good as the USC quarterback as a freshman. Caleb Williams is now the new USC quarterback. And I think that there's opportunity there in that class because I think you'll have people that are saying, well, at least I'm not giving my 23 first. That 23 first is gold, but here's my 24 first. And I feel like I've seen a little bit of that already in my leagues where you kind of see the deal that gets done with the 24 first and you're like, what are you doing, dude? Like that's still going to be a good pick. But I do think that there's some of those because there's so much hype on the 23 class. It almost devalues the 24 picks.
Every class around it seems less good. Like that's why the 22 picks don't seem as good because of next year.
The 22 picks don't seem as good because this class is just legitimately bad.
That's fair enough.
Especially at the top of the class. I found that there was some value, like I don't know, like a Tyler Algier or whomever later in the draft, but the top of the draft is just not as good, nearly as good. So
and there will be stars that emerge through that, and there will be guys that like you could see like Christian Watson. We could all be like, "What were we thinking? This guy's big, strong, fast, and playing with Aaron Rodgers. Like, why did we not draft him early?" Or like guys like that. There's going to be guys that are drafted later and turn into fantasy stars out of this class. It just happens all the time, but it's at the same time, it's harder to see him coming into it.
All right, so we'll hopefully everyone had a real easy time. It wasn't too difficult to find us here and listen to all this great stuff that Jeff had to offer. I know you've got another podcast to go on to, so follow and find Jeff, and maybe you can follow him on the next podcast guest appearance he makes in the next 5 minutes. So we'll carry out the rest of the outro after, but we'll let you get out of here quickly, Jeff. But if you want to share and plug anything, I know Devy Royale, you guys do so much great work there, which anyone looking for answers Devy wise, that might be the best place to start, arguably. So
Absolutely, yeah. Devy Royale, Tuesday nights at 9:30, and we have a Patreon as well. You can join the Patreon. You can get our Devy Manifesto that talks about college football. We got a rookie guide. We did a pre-draft rookie guide, and then we did a post-draft rookie guide with landing spot. Talked about team scheme fit and depth chart and how rookies were going to fit in there. Football guys, on my content coming up on football guys, and that's really where I'm putting most of my written content outside of those guides on the Patreon, and always around with football guys, and then on Twitter as well, for whom J Bell tolls. But more importantly, follow Kyle and follow Brian, because these guys are great, and follow Going for Two. Make sure you watch all the Going for Two shows. Follow Jeff Lambert. Follow all the guys with Going for Two.
Yeah, as Brian mentioned earlier, right? It's the connections we get, and not just like in terms of strategy, but the relationships. And I'm glad that Jeff, you and I have this great relationship. We can keep coming on talking podcasts. I know Brian, you're really excited to talk with Jeff. So before he heads out, anything you wanted to say or ask?
No, I just want to tell him how great a guy he was. I remember, I guess right after I got my kidney transplant back in 2020, and I reached out to Jeff. He's always been kind, and I just appreciate that. So.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad to see that you are on the move and feeling good. And I remember when you're going through that. And so I'm thankful that you kind of been able to put that behind you.
Thanks. In fact, I had a kidney meeting today, and everything continues to go well. So we'll just
Good.
Yeah. Glad to hear that, Brian.
Thanks, Jeff.
And yeah, glad to have you on, Jeff. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you, guys. All right. Have a good night, guys.
Yeah, you too.
See ya.
Yeah. Jamie's right. Jeff Lambert is amazing. I'm sure Geoff Lambert's great too. But appreciate Jeff and everything he does with us for Going for Two again. So the Going for Two Live Network on YouTube, on Twitch, on Facebook. You can watch Twitter videos as well. But appreciate everyone who kind of joined in today. Goingfor2.com is a great resource for all sorts of different types of fantasy sports, redraft, dynasty, DFS, and DFS for all sorts of different sports. So definitely check out goingfor2.com. And for anyone who loves dynasty talk and loves all the strategy and team building talk, also check out the Personal League podcasts, PLPs, available for $100 per league. So, a 12-team league, that's less than $10 each. What you get is usually it's a full hour podcast. It's usually like an hour and a half podcast, how long we go here usually. And we go through the entire league, all regardless, as it's 12, 14, 16 team leagues. We go through every single team. One expert from Going for Two assigned per team, and kind of go through it, what their moves would be. And because we're doing kind of a group, everyone can consult and give each manager who listens to the PLP a great kind of outlook on things to do with their team, both long-term strategy, big things, but also very specific, quick short-term moves as well. So we try to kind of have that balance and a lot of different opinions. So the PLPs or Personal League podcasts, I know we have a lot of fun doing them, and it seems like all the reviews we've gotten, all the comments back, people really seem to enjoy and learn a lot from what we're saying. So I don't think we've ever had a negative experience or response back in terms of anyone who didn't like the product we produced with the PLPs. So not to just, tap ourselves on the back so much, but it seems, we do kind of put the effort into when we are doing these to research to make sure our advice as well. So just plug in the PLPs, again, plugging Going for Two Live at Going for Two Live on Twitter. Everything Going for Two at Going4_2, and at Jeff Lambert 77 is his Twitter account. Like Jamie's mentioning, and Jeff Bell referenced all the great shows on Going for Two Live Network. But I guess Jamie said Jeff sent me the Armchair Fantasy theme song so he can use it as ringtone. So that's all those. What a way to kick off a call, right? With Going for Two kickers are extra, giving him the boot. I've repeated that. I've got to say that line 2 times. I got to go for 2 twice to say that during the show. But all sorts of great stuff happening. Going for Two Live. I know I'll be on press coverage next Monday, hosting with Christian Williams, also from the Devy Royale. That's not a coincidence. I did kind of plan that to kind of transition naturally there. But I'm looking forward to my conversation with Christian next Monday. I'll be at 8 p.m. Eastern. Brian, did you have any final topics you wanted to talk about, or anything you wanted to say to the listeners and viewers here?
I just wanted to tell them that next Monday's show should be a heck of a show if Christian's joining you. Last fall I worked with him over at the Cut, so we had our own podcast, and hopefully we'll have it again this fall. And as for me, you can always get all my content at Vandegrad 92. I probably have more coming up later in the month of June. My wife's has a new oophorectomy next Tuesday. She had breast cancer last year, so she's doing the oophorectomy now. So content for me has been a little bit slow just because we've been concentrating on my health issues and hers. But I'm looking forward to having more content a little later, maybe in June or so.
Yeah, as we get closer to the season. But yes, of course, the health being the priority. And yeah, Brian, for you and your wife, we wish you all the best, and hope that all the positive news continues to kind of roll in with that.
Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate it. Yeah, we're just trying to get some of this behind us, and maybe we'll feel more normal. So.
Yeah, and if so, I guess you can go with Jamie's strategy. If negative news comes, just don't answer the phone. But because he's apparently never answers his calls anymore because he wants to hear the whole theme song. I can't blame you. So I know that you go on the YouTube channel for Going for Two, any of the armchair shows, the intro is the song, so you can kind of just click on any of those and go in and just watch the theme song for all those videos. I'm pretty sure if you go back in the video archives, Jeff has just the song with the old video. I know the video intro has changed for this season of the Armchair Show, but if you again go on YouTube, check out all the archive stuff, not just for Dynasty Gambit, for all the other great shows, and comment, and if you haven't yet, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It really does help us out there. So just give us that thumbs up for the like, give us a subscribe, comment under the video. Love all the live comments here from everyone. Jamie, we've got I always have a hard time saying this name. You almost got to say it really quick, but Pigbird Jet Fan, and everyone who's coming in saying thank you, we appreciate your appreciation comments, and appreciate that we can kind of help out. And as Brian mentioned, Brian, I guess you're getting a new follow here with Jamie. So I definitely recommend go follow Brian. You obviously get the Dynasty Gambit stuff here, and the written content will eventually start rolling in as well. But I think Brian's a great follow, even when he's not writing articles. Definitely check him out on Twitter. Appreciate everyone who's listened, watched, and followed us all, and again support us on the YouTube channel. Really appreciate that. And make sure to comment below the video. Maybe your favorite version of Devy. Like again, I talked about the divide, right? Do you prefer Devy and rookie drafts combined or separate Devy and rookie drafts? So maybe just let us know and comment below the video if you prefer one or the other, and we'll see what people think of the Dynasty land, or the Devy landscape, I should say.
Maybe the Devy League started. I know there was a couple people on Twitter talking about that earlier. So.
Yeah, I think I know like the guys at the Devy Royale constantly talk about it, right? It's a ever growing format. So just if you do want to join Devy League, head over to Twitter, contact either Brian or just anywhere. I know, again, the Devy Royale guys, they're probably a really good resource to connect to Devy Leagues as well. So definitely give Jeff, Christian, and Kevin follows and connect with them if you have any Devy questions. But as Brian mentioned, as I mentioned, we'll have Christian Williams on press coverage on Monday. And so I'm looking forward to that. But we'll be back 2 weeks from now on Thursday. I guess that'll be Thursday, June, pulling up my calendar real quick, June 9th. So Thursday, June 9th will be the next episode of the Dynasty Gambit. Probably not going to be the Devy Gambit that episode again, but really appreciated this topic. Again, great topic, Brian. I thought this was a really great discussion to have. So way to bring that up, and way to carry this to a good subject for hopefully everyone to educate.
Yeah, hopefully everybody enjoyed it. And there's always more to learn. So thanks, Kyle.
Yeah, and so I guess tune in next time to first find out what we'll talk about. I guess we haven't quite decided yet. Maybe some ideas brewing, but as always, there's no risk in showing up, even if we are the Dynasty Gambit. Bye for now. See you, Brian.
Bye, Kyle.